Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Sometimes the best way to find a living is to stay right where you are and study with UAS online. Career-specific distance programs from the University of Alaska Southeast are the fastest way to increase your earning power.
We connect all over the world.
The National Weather Service.
Hello everybody, and thanks again for joining us here at KAKM for Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. On the breakup chart here, or actually I guess that one's gone, we have a flood advisory now instead of a watch out for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast, and that's for melting snow and ice jam flooding. That's under both warning and watch levels. And for there's a breakup map. Again, everything south of the Brooks Range open and slowly breaking up and seeing less ice and more or less open water here on the three rivers there, the three main rivers on the north slope. And on the satellite, started out pretty good here over the southeast coast. Well, actually it was socked in with clouds all day down there, except a little bit of clearing down south and a few showers, but the main band still off the coast. And actually this is yesterday's satellite loop, so that is correct. It was a nice sunny day there. Had this weakening front edging in toward the coast, and a lot of clouds, showers, areas of rain over the interior, and then a breakout here to the west, and then this mass of moisture and developing low pressure area back in here, pushing up to the northeast. And you can see that today the low developed enough to actually make it out on the satellite loop here, and that did what it was supposed to and moved up to the Yukon Delta and is actually currently more over southeast Norton Sound. Anyway, that pushed rain here from the Alaska Peninsula up into Bristol Bay and throughout the Kuskokwim Valley back onto the northwest. Some areas had some decent rainfall amounts. Dillingham had just under ½ an inch of rain, and that was a 12-hour rainfall amount today. And also Eielson Visitor Center picked up just under ½ an inch also in the shower activity going on over there, but cleared out pretty nicely here south central Alaska and to the east as this system moved off and in advance of the one coming in from the west, which actually moving a little slower than I thought yesterday. Yesterday it looked like some rain would be into Cook Inlet by now, but kind of hanging back up along the Alaska Range. But that'll still push through this evening and back out to the west. Another trough has pushed into the Bering Sea here and extends back down across towards Shimya. And looking at the loop again, you can see this initially mostly sliding northward, but the entire pattern is shifting eastward. So that will bring at least some showers into the Cook Inlet area and probably a little more likely into the Susitna Valley, but nothing too heavy and probably less than what we saw yesterday. And then that next system out here to the west will be even weaker when it makes landfall along the southwest and west coast areas. And for the chart today, there's the rain shield associated with that cold front pushing in, the low center again tracking up to the northeast, and that'll continue drifting northeastward and will weaken into a trough and will lie across the northern interior just south of the Brooks Range tomorrow. And again, the moisture kind of just scattering out to showers with a very weak trailing edge dragging through the eastern Aleutians. Had some clearing here, as I mentioned, south central Alaska, now clouding over there in the Cook Inlet area, but the Copper River Basin, North Gulf Coast was pretty good, as well as up here through the central interior areas. Showers and partly to mostly cloudy skies here from the eastern Brooks Range on up into the upper Yukon Valley, where they kind of tapered off, and then a general rain area up there over the eastern North Slope on out to the Arctic coast, and up to a third of an inch, or as much as a third of an inch had fallen of rain fell over the eastern North Slope today, with lighter amounts along the coast. And for tonight's forecast, again, that front weakens, especially as it crosses the Alaska Range, but enough moisture will come through that we'll probably see a passing shower band come up Cook Inlet, maybe a little bit more in the Susitna Valley, and then it'll extend on up into the Tanana Valley with some showers back to the west, just scattered showers there. And this moisture now weakening and lifting off the coast for the most part, kind of lingering there over toward Barter Island and Kaktovik. And mostly cloudy, scattered showers here for the southeast coast, and the showers now possibly showing up even down over the southern areas, but not quite making it down to Dixon Entrance, and a little more prevalent up here to the north, but nothing too terribly heavy. And then we got low pressure there up over the eastern interior, and the surface low here actually shifts up here and just weakens into a trough there. And then this trough starts to push some moisture into the Yukon Delta, definitely St. Lawrence Island, and into the western Seward Peninsula later tonight. Some clearing here and another ridge building there behind the trough, moving through to the east there over Bristol Bay and actually the southwest interior. So it looks pretty dry, or becoming dry, and maybe some clearing for Bristol Bay. Also across the deltas, lingering showers there from southern Seward Peninsula into the Kuskokwim Valley, and a lingering shower around Kodiak Island, and more showers there for the Alaska Peninsula, but pretty scattered here over the eastern interior, or nothing at all. And then for tomorrow, that trough will produce some showers there from the western North Slope areas southeastward across the Yukon Valley, Koyukuk and Yukon Valley, and will be pushing off to the border areas tomorrow afternoon, but still be mostly cloudy skies and some shower activity across the Copper River Basin, and maybe a few showers over the Talkeetnas, and that pattern will extend northwestward. And this next trough really weakens as it comes on shore. It really doesn't have the upper support that the previous one did, and it's just kind of a weak westerly flow. So just a narrow band of light rain or showers there, roughly from about southern Seward Peninsula, and that'll trail on down to the Alaska Peninsula, but with higher pressure right through here. Northwest flow downsloping off the western Alaska Range should clear it out pretty good here. Kodiak Island on up into south central Alaska, the Kenai Peninsula, and maybe a few more clouds, and again, as I mentioned, a risk of a shower up in the valley areas, and mostly cloudy, scattered showers, or a chance of a few scattered showers over the northern panhandle, and probably clearing out again, maybe becoming mostly sunny over the southern southeast coast. And again, that's where the warmest temperatures will occur. Out to the west here, just a broad area of southwest flow around these ridges, or the main area of high pressure down to the south. So a lot of low clouds, maybe some fog, and just some isolated showers here will be flowing into the northeast. Winds pick up a little bit there, St. Lawrence Island to the Bering Strait, and a little breezy here over the western Aleutians than it will be over the eastern Aleutians. Winds not too bad here, quite light from the Pribilofs down across the peninsula. And outlook for Tuesday, mostly cloudy, showers here, westerly flow, keeping it kind of cool over the interior, and pretty showery conditions up over the eastern North Slope once again. Mixed conditions, precipitation along with some fog over the eastern Arctic coast. And then we've got mostly cloudy skies and some shower activity holding here over the Copper River Basin, probably up to the Northway, Tok, Delta area, and into the central interior, but looks like mostly sunny. Still have high pressure out here to the west, so pretty dry with some clearing over the southwest part of the state. But that southwest flow could bring some moisture up to the southwest coast with some IFR. Same thing for over the northern Bering Sea to St. Lawrence Island. And mostly cloudy, a few scattered showers to the southeast coast. And then a much stronger system here arrives over the western Aleutians with gale force winds out there from the south and southeast, and a pretty good shot of rain coming into mostly areas from Amchitka to the west. But high pressure and light wind conditions, pretty nice. Could see some sunshine here from the eastern Aleutians to the Alaska Peninsula, and otherwise really not much going on out over the Bering Sea. Pretty light winds, westerly flow, so pretty dry air mass will be spreading into the western Gulf of Alaska, but picking up some low clouds and fog there toward the east. Temperatures today across the Panhandle, again coolest like Elfin Cove at 48, about the same as yesterday. Notably cooler down here to the south with Metlakatla at 63, Juneau 57, but up to 62 there at Cordova today, while Valdez had 57. Florida mid-50s, Kenai Peninsula into the Susitna Valley, 62 at Gulkana. There's Northway with 60 and a little bit warmer there at Fairbanks, but cooler to the west into the 50s and then dropping into the mid to upper 40s farther west, and actually that pattern extending out to the coastline. Then you're into the upper 30s there, places like Amonic and Macoriac, as well as Savunga, and 32 degrees at Tin City. And along the Arctic coast in the lower to mid 30s there on the east side, 40s on the west side, 40s here over the northwest, and 40s to near 50 here over the western areas, with really a few hundredths to maybe a couple of tenths inch of rain falling in that area today. And for the Pribilos, mid to upper 40s, 52 out at Adak, 41 at Shemya, and Chignik pushed up to 51. Otherwise, we had 40s from Bristol Bay down across the peninsula, 54 at Kodiak. And for the lows tonight, upper 20s to mid 30s here for the North Slope and the Arctic coast, mid to upper 30s there for the Seward Peninsula, and upper 30s at the southwest interior, warming into the 40s, in some cases the upper 40s off to the east, and that same temperature pattern right down to the North Gulf Coast, and lows in the 40s for the Panhandle. For the highs tomorrow, lower 60s here over the Yukon Valley areas, and upper 50s to lower 60s for the southeast interior, south central, 50s for the Panhandle, 40s and 50s there for the Aleutians and the Bering Sea. And for flying weather tomorrow, IFR here in the eastern interior and areas of the southeast coast. And then, of course, the IFR out here along the west coast and the Bering Sea, which by tomorrow afternoon, still hanging on to some IFR over the northern Panhandle to Yakutat and possibly into the eastern Alaska Range, but some pretty good VFR over the interior. Marginal VFR becomes IFR there over the northern Bering Sea, on up into the Chukchi Basin and the eastern Arctic coast. Passes Anaktuvik VFR, becoming marginal as the moisture lifts northward. And Adigan, same forecast, becoming marginal VFR, lowest conditions on the southern entrance. Lake Clark and Merrill, marginal VFR becoming VFR, as well as rainy, same forecast. Same trend for windy as well, starting out marginal, becoming VFR, as well as for Isabel, Mintesta, should be VFR, Tanita, maybe marginal to start with, but then becoming VFR. Same forecast for Portage, marginal becoming VFR. And for Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels, 2,000 feet northern Bering Sea into the southwest interior, with the trough moving inland, and then warming up to about 6,000 feet here over the eastern interior to 8,000 feet over the Panhandle, and warmer over the western Aleutians. Icing threats, one batch here from the Arctic coast southeastward to the North Gulf Coast, areas of mostly of the mixed variety above 6,000 feet, and then some rime icing moving into the west coast there with that weak trough, so shouldn't be anything too significant, and that'll extend down to the Alaska Peninsula. And the upper level wind flow chart right there, the trough that will move through this evening, ridging behind that, and then the next trough, pretty weak there approaching the west coast, and basically the high now here shifting far enough to the east that you're going to be into a more cloudy, cooler, showery pattern there for the southeast coast. And 9,000 feet, a lot of southwest flow here across the Bering Sea right into the interior, and then kind of diverges and becomes quite weak, but up to 25 knots there along the southeast coast. 3,000 feet southwest, 25 to 30 knots, drops off to about 15 to 20 here as it reaches the coast, and pretty light over the interior. Could see 20 knots there along the White Mountains. Northwest 25 for the Panhandle. And for the turbulence outlook, with that westerly, west-northwesterly flow, could see some light to isolated moderate chop there, Kodiak Island, up across Iliamna Lake and on the lee side of the Aleutian Range, also from St. Lawrence Island through the Bering Strait and maybe Kivalina, Point Hope, Cape Lisburne, but pretty smooth here through much of the interior. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts.
Deep water moves at a different rate of speed than shallow water. Different depth levels on the same river can change its characteristics, presenting a dangerous situation to the less experienced rafter.
This is what not to do when you fall out of the raft. Never.
To provide for the safest trip, utilize the services of professional whitewater rafting guides who are experienced and understand the characteristics and dynamics of a river. Depending on the river conditions, professional guides will make adjustments in the size of rafts and even the number of people in a raft to ensure your adventure is a safe one. Before venturing on rivers, whitewater enthusiasts should always listen to local National Weather Service broadcasts over NOAA Weather Radio to hear the latest river conditions and weather forecasts. The solitude of an inner world. The allure of exploring wondrous places where few people have ventured. The appreciation of geological formations, and even the fluttering of bats add to the mystique of caving and attract many enthusiasts. But caving has its own inherent risks. Although caves would seem to be far removed from rain and rivers, water hazards do exist here. Most caves are damp or wet, and many have active streams. But even dry caves can flood from rains, and not necessarily from heavy downpours. An all-day drizzle can raise water to dangerous levels, first saturating the ground, and then permeating down between the layers of rock, flooding a cavern with water. Other caves have outside streams, which even under normal weather conditions go directly into a cave. Rising water from rain can flood a cave within minutes. If the stream drains a large area outside, localized thunderstorms that are miles away from the cave can cause it to flood, creating an underground tomb for the unfortunate people trapped inside. Here are some things to remember about caving. Water levels can be low in some sections and high in others. Water levels can rise very fast, but be very slow to recede. There can be a long delay between the time it rains and the time it actually floods. In caves where you go through crawlways or spots with little airspace, it doesn't take much water to cut off your exit. Careful attention must be given to the weather conditions prior to entering the cave. Listen to NOAA Weather Radio before entering a cave. In a lot of situations, when rain or thunderstorms are in the forecast, the safest thing to do is just stay away. Know your caves. Know which caves are subject to flooding and which are not. To avoid drowning, hypothermia, or injury, safety must always come first. With some precaution, cavers can expect a safe adventure. Urban areas have their own flash flood problems. Open storm drains, culverts, and drainage ditches are man-made arroyos and concrete canyons. Found in nearly every community and normally dry throughout the year, storm drains are attractive places for children to play. These seemingly benign ravines are designed to quickly move runoff from excessive rain and rapidly melting snow away from a community. Since this process fills the ravine with water, often with little warning, storm drains and culverts are potentially hazardous areas and no place for children. Sometimes the pull from the fast-moving water is so great, you could easily be pulled into a storm drain.
They were playing in the water, and all of a sudden he disappeared in the sewer.
Just got sucked in.
Just got sucked in. He just disappeared. Was gone. He was there and then gone.
To add to the problem, the increased number of paved streets and parking lots found in sprawling communities do not allow water to soak into the ground. This contributes to rapid urban runoff and storm drain flooding. On a typical city block, impervious surfaces such as pavement and rooftops generate 9 times more runoff than a woodland area of the same size. Don't take chances. Keep yourself and your children away from storm drains. Here's a quick summary to help you remember the main points. Canyons can funnel large amounts of floodwater from great distances with no warning to the unwary hiker. A dry arroyo can quickly become a raging river. River conditions change. When whitewater rafting, know your river. Experience counts. Be knowledgeable of current weather conditions before you enter a cave. Don't allow your children to play in or near storm drains. They can be pulled in and swept away by swift-moving water. Stay informed about current river and weather conditions by listening to NOAA weather radio, commercial radio, and television. Keep in mind that should you need to be rescued, you are also placing someone else's life in danger. Respect the power of moving water.
Welcome back. Small craft advisories here along the coast. West northwesterlies 25 knots, west 20 on the north coast, and the southerlies increasing to 25 knots for northern Lynn Canal in the afternoon, just 15 knots for Stevens Passage, and northwest at 20 for Clarence Strait. Looking ahead to Tuesday, lighter winds, northwest 20 knots, these about 7 feet, dropping off to 6 feet there on the north coast. And still looking at small craft advisories for northern Lynn Canal, otherwise northwest 15 to 20 knots on down to the south. For the Prince William Sound zone, light and variable winds, probably northwest at 10 knots with 2-foot seas, southwest 10 to 20 in Cook Inlet, and then we've got small craft advisories, west 25 for Kamishak Bay, a little stronger across the Barrens, and that extends on east along the North Gulf Coast as well as the east side of Kodiak Island. And then for Tuesday, westerly winds lighter, 15 to 20 knots, Kodiak Island, hanging on to the small craft advisories for Kamishak Bay and the Barrens. Otherwise, not too bad, pretty light winds, 10 to 20 knots elsewhere. And for Bristol Bay, on down the Bering Sea side of the peninsula, southwest 15 knots. And then from Castle Cape to Sitkinak, west at about 20 with 7-foot seas. And then for Tuesday, southwest winds 10 knots for the Alaska Peninsula, seas only 3 to 4 feet, 15 knots there for Bristol Bay, and west 15 southwest of Kodiak Island. And for the eastern Aleutians, west to southwest, 15 knots back toward Adak and Atka, picking up to 25 knots there for the western zone. And then gales come in with that next storm on Tuesday, southeast 35, turning south 35, and then dropping to small craft advisories there for the central Aleutians, and pretty light southwest winds for the Fox Islands. And on the southwest coast, southwest 25, and that extends out to small craft advisory across the northern Bering Sea. Either side of that, 20 knots. And for Tuesday, southwest 20 knots, St. Lawrence Island, right down into Kuskokwim Bay, as well as the Pribilofs, south 20 for the northern Bering. And for the Arctic coast, small craft and brisk wind advisories here as those easterlies hold at about 25 knots, 20 knots on out to the west, and then southerlies 15 to 20. And for Tuesday, we've got south at about 20 knots there from Wales up to Cape Beaufort, southeast here on the west side, easterlies lighter, 15 to 20 knots with the strongest winds on the east side. And for tonight, that boundary finally shifting into Canada, the upper high far enough to the east now that being a cooler, cloudier, and kind of showery pattern there for a couple of days for the Panhandle. This what looked like a formidable system here coming into the west really weakens as it crosses the Alaska Range, but some showers will probably move across Cook Inlet as well as the valleys. And then the next trough here may bring some precipitation to the Seward Peninsula and along the coast later tonight. And then we've got a really weak trough here in the west, and pretty nice day with those northwest breezes there from Kodiak Island up into Cook Inlet, and some showers north Gulf Coast maybe across the Copper River Basin, also along that trough.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.